They feel the first tremors of the earthquake that precedes the eruption. And the painter, who was on the scaffolding, might have lost his balance and spilled some plaster from the pot he was holding onto the painting.
And do you think he escaped?
I'm sure they ran away, but I can't tell whether they survived.
It's extraordinary to see this stuff painted just before the volcano erupted. So picture the scene in Herculaneum and Pompeii on that hot, sultry afternoon, rather what as hot as it is this evening here in Herculaneum. And you've got the people there looking up at this mountain behind them, which suddenly explodes. And a huge, great column of hot ash and rock shoots up above the volcano and hangs there above the cities. Now, they've no idea, these people, what's going on. They are utterly amazed and stunned. They've never seen anything like this before, and they're totally surprised by it. So perhaps the best way to tell the story of what happens now is from the crater of Vesuvius itself. Well, what a day to be up here at the top of this angry mountain. It's a stormy day, clouds swirling around, and it's mighty cold up here too. And I'm with one of Italy's leading volcanologists, Giuseppe Mastrolorenzo. Now, Giuseppe, on this August day, August the 24th, 79 AD, what are the people down there thinking about this mountain? What do they know about this mountain?
They don't know anything about the volcanoes. So this was a normal mountain for them.
Are there any signs you'll have had before that day that this thing's going to explode?
They just felt earthquakes every day, maybe, before
the eruption. Is that usual? Is that unusual?
Unusual for them.
Before the mountain actually explodes and they see it happening, what is happening down there in that crater? What's happening under the mountain?
There is a magma chamber beneath the volcano at the depth of in the order of 5-6 kilometers.
Magma. Now that's red, molten, incredibly
rocks,
hot. Is
at
that
about
lava?
1,000 degrees, with a lot of gas inside.
What causes the mountain to explode?
Near the surface, there is a rapid expansion of the gases, which cause the magma to explode.
And how big an explosion is this?
A very, very big explosion. The energy is in the order of tens of nuclear explosions, but the difference...
As big as a nuclear explosion?
Bigger, but the difference is that nuclear explosions is instantaneous. So all the energy is released in a fraction of a second. In this case, we have a continuous releasing of energy from the volcano.
Well, there was a Roman eyewitness to all this, Pliny the Younger, who watched it all from his villa away over the other side of the Bay of Naples. And this is what he says: "A cloud of extraordinary dimensions and appearance had been seen. Like an immense tree trunk, it was projected into the air and opened out with branches."
The maximum elevation, the maximum height of this column was 33 kilometers.
20 miles?
Yes, right.
All afternoon and the early evening, people are running away or looking up at this extraordinary great plume above Vesuvius, which is still staying there.
Yes.
Then something happens. What happens later on that night?
There is a collapse, the first collapse of the column. It is a terrifying event because all the material in the sky falls down. It's causing the production of hot avalanches expanding everywhere in all directions from the volcano. It is a lot of debris and gas, very fine ash, moving down at the beginning at the speed of a hurricane.
And how hot is it?
At least 500 degrees.
And the name of this great avalanche of volcanic rock and gas that's hitting Herculaneum?
Pyroclastic flows and pyroclastic surges.
Pyroclastic surges and flows. And how quickly does Herculaneum become buried?
In a few hours of the eruption, starting from the midnight.
So these pyroclastic surges and flows, they bury Herculaneum completely?
Yes, with a thickness of about 20 to 25 meters.
So the place is utterly buried?
Right.
Utterly buried.
Completely
60 feet,
buried.
70 feet deep, 20 meters,
Completely
whatever.
buried.
Listening to you talking, Giuseppe, it's extraordinary how long this whole catastrophe took.
Eruptions like these are different from earthquakes, which are instantaneous. This is a long tragedy.
A long tragedy indeed. Now, Guy, what do you think the people who managed to escape from all this, as they were escaping, if you like, what did they think had happened? Why did they think it had happened?
They literally thought it was the end of the world. I mean, they had no idea it wasn't all over the rest of the world, that it wasn't just here. And imagine the sky this dark in the middle of the day, along with all the noise and the horror. Some of them thought they'd seen the shadows of giants coming out of the ground. Others thought the gods had completely abandoned them. I mean, it was absolutely terrifying. They had no idea how a volcano worked, or even that Vesuvius was a volcano. Now, Pliny the Elder, the uncle of the chap who wrote that wonderful account about the eruption, he was commander of the fleet up the coast, but he was also a natural scientist. He was fascinated in things like volcanoes. He came down here to rescue people, but also because he was desperate to find out what was going on, to
And the poor guy
investigate it.
died.
And he died.
I'll be back in a moment to tell you just what happened to those people who tried to escape.
We're back here at the edge of Herculaneum's site in the Basilica, and we're about to go into the tunnel there that has only just been reopened for the first time in a generation. In fact, no cameras or members of the public have ever been down there before. I'm with Andrew again. Andrew, tell me, why are there tunnels carving right into the Basilica here?
Well, what we're looking at with these tunnels is the origins of the history of excavation. These are the tunnels made by the first Bourbon excavators who came down in well shafts and they tunnelled along in order to discover it.
This place is quite something, isn't it?
It is an extraordinary experience.
It's very, very dramatic with these beautiful columns here. So I suppose this feels a little bit like what it would have felt like to be an excavator in the 17th century.
We're looking...
Except with a torch instead of a...
We probably will need a torch in here.
Candle.
We're looking at 1739. It's the very beginnings. The kings of Naples wanted to fill their palaces with wonderful treasures, and they sent people down here, and they did a lot of destruction, but they mapped the whole site in this sort of rabbit warren of tunnels.
Well, let's just take a minute to look around here. I mean, first of all, you've got these beautiful, beautiful columns. And look at this one here. What's going on with this one?
Well, here you've got the top of a column shaft. Here's its bottom, and it's the sheer force of the eruption has brought it down like this. And most of the site, we see stuff that's been carefully recomposed. But because we're in the tunnels, this is what the excavators actually find. This enormous destruction, enormous lumps torn over to a side.
And are there more? Are there more tunnels?
Yes, if we can sort of follow along like the Bourbons into the warren, if we go in here, what we see is a wonderful fragment of fresco.
Gosh, we're really having to crawl here, aren't we?
And watch out for your head too. But look up here. What they did was to hack out anything that they saw that was beautiful, because they're interested in treasures for the palace. And so they find a beautiful fresco there, they hack it out and they send it up top, and then they just backfill it and abandon it.
What a crime! I mean, what's happened to this little
We
piece
have
of fresco?
no idea where it is. It might be in the museum in Naples, it might be anywhere else. But now that we can get back again and see what they discovered, look, there's all sorts of details that are really interesting archaeologically. Do you see those little bits of wood there? That's a trellis that was in front of a window, and it slipped down from above. And then if you look along there, you're seeing... Do you see? There's where the tunnel goes, right round the back, and it's been filled here. Do you see there are great lumps of masonry there that have been
Stretch all the way back.
Yep. And
Well, should we go on? Should we go on and round a little bit more?
Yep.
So these people were treasure hunters, but they also wanted to find out about the basilica, didn't they? They wanted to learn about it. I mean, do you know what the shape is?
Thank heavens they made a map when they did these tunnels, and they made very good maps. There's slight inconsistencies in their detail, but it allows us to reconstruct the rest of it. And we can see, do you see this wonderful column here? The row of columns goes on there, and then it goes on that way.
So what
you've got is the shape like a church, or rather like what we call a basilica, a Christian basilica, with columns going around the edges and then a big row of columns down the centre.
And I can just see over here that there is some frescoes.
Yes.
Which are very beautiful, aren't they?
Well, and look at that.
There's a basket of fruit there.
Well, it looks like a fruit basket. Actually, those are metallic objects, and they're drinking vessels.
I can see it, gosh, yes. And then, so it must have been a very grand building, this, to have such beautiful, beautiful frescoes. Now, Andrew, seeing all this, it must be so tantalising for you. You must be dying to get your hands on this and to find out where the basilica actually stretches to.
Well, of course, it would be a dream, because this is one of the most important buildings in town. It would be a dream to excavate it, but we can't, because right above our heads, right up there, are modern houses. And it's extremely dangerous.
Well, listen, thank you for showing me around here. It's absolutely stunning, isn't it, this place? At the moment of the eruption, there could have been dozens of people trapped here in the basilica. After the break, we'll be finding out exactly how they died.
Now just imagine the scene here in Herculaneum. It's 12 hours after the eruption of Vesuvius up there. So near, you can almost see it in the dark, it's so close to Herculaneum. And that great column of ash and rock above Vesuvius suddenly collapses. And it comes roaring down in what's called the pyroclastic surge, we heard Giuseppe saying there. And it hits Herculaneum with unimaginable ferocity, with a great roar. What happens to the people who are still here? Well, recent finds along here on the seashore have been able to tell us the horrific story of that event. Well, here we are now on what used to be the beach of Herculaneum, and Giuseppe Mastrorenzo and I are joined by Pierpaolo Petroni, who's a bioanthropologist. Pierpaolo, what did you find on the beach?
Here, it's hard to imagine, but there was the onset beach of Herculaneum, there was the sea, and this is a 20-meter tuff deposit, deposited during the eruption. And here inside we found other victims.
An extraordinary sight. How many people are we looking at here, Pierpaolo?
We didn't excavate yet, of course, but we know that there must be about 25, 30 individuals. And most of these people was just sitting at the time of the emplacement of the first sergeant, just like this one, few standing. So just the time to fall down. But here we have this pregnant woman, because a few years ago, just at the starting of the excavation, in the beginning of the 80s, were found some very small bones of a fetus within the pelvis of this woman. And there is a young boy just laying near this woman on the right shoulder.
So that's a pregnant woman there with a little child sleeping on her shoulder, perhaps?
Maybe the child was sleeping, probably at that time, because the collapse...
On her shoulder?
Yes. The first collapse happened at about midnight, so maybe at that time all children were sleeping.
Giuseppe, how did they die, these people?
Well, these people died due to the pyroclastic surge.
The pyroclastic surge, that's this great blast of heat that instantly kills them and burns their flesh.
Right, pyroclastic surge is a turbulent cloud including a lot of particle, fine particle, at very high temperature and with a lot of gas inside, mostly steam.
You can see directly from these victims the tridimensional position of these people, just due to this effect, very sudden effect of the heat on these people. So the soft tissues were very rapid, substituted by the hot ash. Because when you excavate a skeleton, you always find it flat on the bottom, but not in this case.
Now, what were these people doing here?
I think that these people was just waiting for the hand of this catastrophe.